It's Friday the 9th of August and welcome to the Edinburgh Fringe. Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. We've made it to the weekend. It's Friday at the Fringe. The big Friday, Saturday night awaits the artists, whether they be performing in theatre, on stage, on the street, in comedy, in mime, in music, in silent disco, which is probably around somewhere. This is a chance to really bring in the numbers. It's an interesting one because there's a lot of acts who I've been following online have said, look, I've got great numbers throughout midweek, great numbers at the weekend, but for some reason this Friday is very, very quiet. So if you have the chance, get out, find your favourite act, find a random act, find one that somebody recommended to you. Look at that, sneaking in the Fringe rule of three there once more. And if you're looking for recommendations, well, we've got a handful coming up here. Later on, I'm going to be speaking to Archie Henderson, the man behind Jazz Emu. But before that, a little stop off at the Scotsman and their Fringe First Awards. The Scotsman has been running these awards for new theatre, debuting at the Fringe for well over 50 years. And they announce them sort of in waves. Every week there's some more. So they get the benefit of the press both in Edinburgh during August, and of course it can be taken away with them and put on the CVs, and an award from the Fringe Free Theatre does an immense amount of good in terms of getting the PR for a run, especially for small theatre productions. So the first awards are hot off the digital press, so let's just do a quick rundown on what we have here. First up is the show Batshit at the Traverse. It's a solo show from Australia about social norms on housewives in the 1960s. Then we have appearing at the Pleasance, we have the show The Border, a play about the fight for gay, trans and non-binary rights with a backdrop of the Ukraine invasion by Russia. Over at the Traverse, we have our next award winner in Cyrano, which, you know, very simply, it's a gender-flipped version of Cyrano de Bergerac, but of course it's not that simple. There's a lot more interpretation, a lot more bringing it up to date there as well. A History of Paper is a look at the life through the paperwork gathered by an individual, even in today's paperless society, also playing at Traverse. Summer Hall has June Carter Cash, The Woman, Her Music and Me. It's the intertwined lives of country singer June Carter Cash and writer-performer Charlene Boyd. Of note here, it's directed by Cora Bissett. And remember I was talked about, you know, there's a name that you can trust. That's one of the ones you should pick for. Cora Bissett's one of those in theatre, at least for me, and probably for a lot of other people as well. Final of the Fringe First for this week is So Young at the Traverse as well. A single evening comedy drama with a couple, a widow and an internet bride. A single evening as in it takes place over a single evening. It's running for the full length of the Fringe. All those shows we will link back by title back at our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. Right, today's interview, as mentioned, Archie Henderson, the creative mind behind Jazz Emu, a flamboyant singer with illusions of grandeur. Jazz Emu is looking to climb the dizzying pole of stardom, and the show at the Fringe is about that climb in front of royalty, as Jazz Emu decides to mix his brand of musical fun with intense moments and that drive to find success. Archie and I talk about the influences of music and style behind the character and how audience interactions that you normally run as a stand-up comic, how can they apply to something which is essentially a piece of scripted musical theatre? How do those change depending on the venue that Henderson and the full band are actually playing in? You know, do you go from that big stage in Pleasance 1 to the backdrop of a pub in London to a black box theatre that you're practicing in? How much does that influence the show? And why did the government's lockdown campaign to change careers play a key part in Jazz Emu's story? But to start with, there is an obvious question about an emu. Joining me now on the show, Archie Henderson. Welcome to the show, Archie.
Thanks for having me.
And if people search for Archie Henderson in the Fringe Guide, they're not going to find you, are they?
They are not. They need to be searching for Jazz Emu, my alter ego.
So, for somebody my age, anybody who's doing a show at the Fringe that has the word emu in it brings a certain connotation to mind. So,
tell me what you get.
Do you have a mad, psychotic puppet?
You know what? It was considered for the act, and I thought I might be stealing this of something else. So I binned it from the first go, yeah. But I do lay eggs.
I mean, it's jazz. Of course you do.
Yeah. Musical eggs.
So
yeah.
who is Jazz Emu then?
Jazz Emu is a character I created about 5 years ago, but it was kind of the logical endpoint for, I think, a lot of things I'd been obsessed with for a while. And I'd written a lot of these songs. They're kind of comedy songs with this kind of 70s, 80s funk infusion with some kind of electro-y influence too, but they're mostly just big, silly songs. And I wanted a big, braggadocious character to go along with them. So I kind of started mulling on who this guy was. And he kind of fell out of my subconscious.
So there's not one specific inspiration for this then?
I don't think. I think it's a real smorgasbord of influences, mostly from when I was about 10 years old. Things I loved: Peter Sellers, comedies, Anchorman, big Will Ferrell things, Austin Powers. I was obsessed with Roger Moore as James Bond in those insane 70s suits with big lapels, and I think my brain just kind of smushed all of these together into the monstrosity that this character has become.
None of those are specifically musicians. I know that Peter Sellers had a lot of musical comedy tracks.
Yeah.
And I'm immediately springing towards I'm Walking Backwards for Christmas, although I think there might have been a bit of Milligan in there as well. But none of these are specifically musicians. They're all comedians.
Yeah, that was, I think...
So I've just pegged Roger Moore's comedian, but I've seen the Spice Girls movie. Yes.
Yeah, I think the comedy that I loved was often musical comedy. I would really love Flight of the Conchords and The Mighty Boosh and those things when I was growing up. I also just love music. I love listening to music. I was making all of these songs on my computer at home, and I was trying to make sincere music for quite a long time. I had when I was a teenager, had this 8-track recorder that my mum had been given and never used, but I'd sequestered it up to my bedroom and started making these very sincere and bad kind of emo songs with my guitar. And I think when I hit my 20s, I was started making more beats in Logic and using software and stuff. And all of the lyrics that were coming out were kind of these big, flamboyantly silly comedy songs. And I just went with that, felt a bit inspired by that. It was fun to do.
If somebody was looking for sort of what is a flamboyant musician, if you had to describe it to a general audience, what's closest? Who's in the same sort of flavorscape? Oh, that's a good word. I like that one.
That's nice. Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, I think in terms of, I think he wants to be Bowie. I would say that. I think he is sitting in that world of big performative. He thinks he is quite arty and profound in what he's doing. Sadly, he's too much of an idiot to make that come across effectively. But I think he wants to be this big, over performative kind of stage presence. Yeah. And so he's always overcompensating slightly.
Yet you have this big stage presence coming to, irrespective of where you're on the Fringe, a small physical stage at the Fringe. What's that like in terms of staging and theatricality for you then as a performer?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge with this show. Actually, the show that we're doing in Edinburgh this year it's definitely going to be the biggest stage that I've done in terms of, it's in Pleasance 1, which is an old debating hall. And so it's got a high ceiling. It's got this kind of proscenium arch and it's got a big stage. This one, there's quite a lot of depth to it. And so we've been workshopping this show, obviously, in tiny rooms. We did a series of work in progresses at the Rosemary Branch pub in Haggerston near me in East London. And we did 5 nights there, and you're obviously crammed into this black box. I'm performing the songs as if I'm performing them to a stadium, because that's what the character wants to believe that he's doing, and that's what I want to believe that I'm doing, because it's more fun for me. But it means that it's really difficult for the audience to kind of latch onto it, I think, in that situation, because it's so obviously meant to be on a bigger stage. You know, we've got big projection and we got big lights, and there's definitely a disjunct in what we've done so far, I think. So I'm interested to see, coming up to the Fringe now, to this slightly bigger stage and bigger room, whether it's going to feel right, or we'll find out.
If somebody's doing solo stand-up, standing there with a microphone, it's relatively easy to re-sculpt on the fly when with a big room, a small room, timid's not the wrong word, a sort of introspective crowd compared to an extrospective crowd. Mm-hmm. Is it easy to do that with musical comedy?
I think less so with the stuff that I do, which the current format of the show is with a big band. It's very in your face, and it's got this kind of gig feeling to it, as well as being a comedy show. It's like, you know, got this kind of late night party atmosphere to it, just by having the band there and playing these big loud songs. And so that's a kind of challenge of doing a Fringe show, I think, is that you just have, the audience has a different flavor every night. And so I think I've tried to write some space into the show between songs where they're actually they're just comedy bits. Actually, they're like little character sketches, or they kind of have stand-up elements to them as well. And I really noticed after doing the first previews that it really needed more space for things like that, where it was kind of a room for it to breathe, for the audience to recover from the kind of onslaught of stimulation that we throw at them with the songs and the videos.
What sort of balance is there time-wise in those sort of sketch moments compared to the sort of more musical moments?
It's ended up being about half and half, I would say. Half songs, half kind of stand-up-y segue bits. There's some story stuff. There's characters coming in on screen, on video. It definitely, it kind of needed that up and down much more than we've done shows with a standing audience that feel like a music gig, and we've just played songs back to back, and that seems to make a lot more sense in that context. Suddenly, as soon as people are sat down, they have completely different expectations. They're there to listen to every word, and they want to be rewarded for that by the end of the show. I think they want there to be a payoff.
Sidetrack question.
Yeah.
If I come out of the show and want to listen to the music again, is it up on like Bandcamp, or
it's on Bandcamp? It's on Spotify and Apple Music and all those things too.
Which one of those options makes you the most money?
Bandcamp.
Right then,
easily.
We will put the link to Bandcamp back in the show notes on our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. But in terms of that flamboyancy, you have this wonderfully heightened storyline going through the show.
Yeah, it's very big, silly storyline, Austin Powers style, comedy plot, very big and broad. The concept of the show is essentially that Jazz Emu wants to secure a knighthood. He's finally playing the Royal Variety Show, and he thinks this is his chance to get in front of His Majesty the King and win this knighthood. So it's ridiculous, stupid, high stakes, which is just a fun way to for me to put the character through some trials and tribulations. And you know, he's so dense as a person that it's fun watching him trying to bounce around through these things, I think.
Is there part of your head, I mean, you said Anchorman there, you said Austin Powers there, both of which started off as sketches, admittedly on SNL, so a slightly bigger platform, but I like to think the Fringe is almost as powerful. Is there part of your head thinking, how big can this go?
That was the kind of the base level experiment of this show, doing a show with a band, which I've never done properly before, was like, the character is so fun to perform big, and it seems to work with all of this tech, all these gizmos and all this tech and lights and video projection and all this kind of stuff. It when I've performed it before, I've been kind of itching to make it bigger, and it's been really interesting doing that because of you're suddenly presented with so many challenges doing something on this in this kind of medium scale at the Fringe, where you're going to a bigger venue. Suddenly there's so many moving parts, there's so many people to pay, and so many expenses that I didn't quite account for in terms of putting on this show. So we're always slightly just stretching our what we're able to achieve in the space and the time, which is fun. But it's at the end of the day, it all comes down to is the show funny and is the show compelling to watch? With all the bells and whistles, it always comes down to that, I think. And that's the thing, that the core that I'm always trying to remember while I'm doing all of this extra work to like make it really shiny.
And it also allows you to do a great pun in the show title.
It does. Most importantly, it has a pun with a silent letter, which, those are rare.
This is your
well.
lead in to promote it, Archie.
Oh no, I hate promoting. Yeah, I would never dare.
Okay,
the show is called Night Fever. Night Fever with a K. Yeah.
Hence the royal connection.
Hence the royal connection.
Right. Okay. So remind us also where people can come and see the show during the Fringe.
You can see Jazz Emu Night Fever at the Pleasance Courtyard at 9 p.m. until the 25th of August.
And that's at Pleasance 1 in the Pleasance Courtyard.
1.
And if we want to find out more about Jazz Emu, obviously we've got the Bandcamp link coming in to listen to the music, but is there a wider world of jazz that we can explore with him?
There is. All the best stuff is on my YouTube, and I would recommend sorting by most popular. If I was discovering this stuff and I was feeling lazy, that is what I would do, and I would watch them. But if you're willing to put the time in, there are some lovely little strange deep cuts. Scroll down to the bottom, find the least popular and see. I actually don't know which one it is, but it's probably enjoyable in its own way.
In terms of those listener count, what's been the most surprising song? What's the song we thought, it's just for me, but it turns out that it's the one for everybody else?
I think I did one in lockdown that did end up doing quite well on Twitter, and it was that moment where the government was suggesting that artists should retrain. And it's like, your job is useless, do something else. If you're a ballet dancer, you should be going to work in finance or whatever. And I did the test that they had on the government website, and it suggested I should be a geoscientist, and I was like, that's just insane and really funny. Anyway, I made a song about that and I thought was kind of just for me. It felt like a joke for me because it's so specific, and people connected with it for whatever. It was one of the first ones. I'd been making these songs for about 3 years or something, posting them online. That was one of the first ones, I think, that actually caught a bit of a tailwind online.
Shall we take a little listen to it?
Yeah. This is The Government Has Asked Me to Retrain.
Government asked me to retrain as a geoscientist. They think I rock. Wondering if I can replace my sound with rock analysis. It's igneous. They don't know the dangers of what they're doing. The world can't afford to lose my visionary music. I like crispy toast. I like the way they open my back. Did Shakespeare give up writing Macbeth when the plague struck? Did he fuck? No, stop building the ark just because he was 6,000 years old or something. No, Gilbert Stewart, stop printing George Washington. Actually scrap that one. Bad example. Government, you need to refrain from crushing true artists like me. 'Cause I'm a good citizen, pay all my taxes. I just live in
there we are, Jazz Emu. A little bit of music for you there with the government has asked you to retrain. Archie, a delight to meet yourself. A delight to kind of meet Jazz as well. Obviously, those who want the full experience, we will have links to the ticket office on our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com, links to Bandcamp and the YouTube. If you want to listen and support a little bit more, are going to be up on that website as well. But for now, Archie, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Archie Henderson there as Jazz Emu in the show Night Fever with the K. It plays Pleasance Courtyard, the aforementioned Pleasance one, 9 p.m. right through until the 25th of August. Ticket links at our website, as always, as are the links to those shows from the first week of Fringe Firsts from the Scotsman. As I said, it is the weekend. If you're up in Edinburgh, this is the chance to go out, see the big shows, lots of crowds, lots of atmosphere, lots of excitement. If you're not sure what to see or how to structure your days, that rule of 3, remember, see something you know, see something somebody else has seen and you trust, and then go and see something completely at random. As always, if you can, link, like, love, share, subscribe in your podcast app directory and on your social medias. It really helps people find the show, and I will catch you at the Fringe or beyond very, very soon. Ta-ra for now. You've been listening to the Edinburgh Fringe Show, hosted by Ewan Spence, produced by Spence Media and Radio 6 International. Listen to more at edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com.